I'm Nick Tipping and I'm a jazz bass player.
And I'm Douglas Mews and I'm a harpsichord player.
And we're going to be talking about the way bass lines work in the music that each of us plays. So I guess my question to Douglas is when you sit down at the keyboard and you're faced with a sheet of music and it has some notes on it and some numbers above the notes, how do you deal with that?
Well, the most important thing is probably to play the bass line, and that usually gives you a lot of clues about what to do with your right hand. Now, of course, there may or may not be numbers, and those numbers can help you, but actually there's usually more clues from the bass itself, or if it's an accompaniment for a singer, look at what he or she's doing, and that'll give you a lot of information. And then, of course, once you've got a kind of a basic idea of what the harmony is doing, you probably want to make it a bit more interesting and introduce some perhaps discords that may not be there in the figures. But if they sound good, then you can do them.
Got to give it a go.
Yeah. So Nick, when someone hands you a bit of paper with chords on it, what do you do with it?
So what I would expect to see a piece of paper that says like E minor 7, A7, D7, G7, that kind of thing. And really that's the starting point for a jazz bass line. And by a jazz bass line I mean like your classic walking jazz bass line. The E or the A or the D tells you the root of the chord. Then you've got minor or major, in which that tells you the quality of the chord. And I use that information to decide what notes I'm going to play. Generally, I'm going to be playing the root of the chord, so the E or the A or the D or the G. But depending on the context, depending what the other musicians around me are playing, I might choose to play the third or the fifth or even the seventh, just to add a little bit of colour. So in a walking bass line you've got, say, 4 beats in a bar. The first would be decided by what the chord is, a D or an A or an E, and I would play that note. And then the rest of the bar is spent getting to the next chord somehow by deciding what the proper scale is to use, whether it's an E minor scale or an E major scale or a chromatic scale. And I would spend the next 3 beats, for instance, in a 4/4 bar, getting up to my next chord, which might be an A, or down to a D or a G or that sort of thing. I'm also listening, as you are, to the other people around me and what they're doing, and what their musical decisions are affects what my musical decisions are, if you know what I mean. So I might choose to complement them, or I might choose to do what you talked about and add some chromaticism, some wrong sounding notes, just to add a little bit of tension. So I guess both of us, when we play, are improvising in some way. I would start with the harmony and construct a bass line from it, and you would start with the bass line and construct the harmony. But where does the improvisation come in that kind of music for you?
Well, for me, the right hand is improvising. So you're deciding, well, is this a big chord or a little chord? Is it loud or soft? Is it sort of busy? Is it sort of gentle, quiet? Yeah, and then you just sort of improvise something that will sort of fit in with what idea you want to put across.
Yeah, I was going to ask how you decide whether something's a big chord or a little.
Yeah, well, this is where it helps if you're actually accompanying someone.
Yeah.
Which is basically what we're both doing, I think.
Yep.
So if I'm accompanying a singer, then what the singer's trying to put across, I'm trying to help with. So something, that's an exclamation, I'll help with a loud kind of chord. And then if she wants to, or he wants to do something gentle, I'll do that.
So you would know in advance whether that's coming up, generally? Because I guess you've rehearsed.
Supposing you've rehearsed, but of course it's more fun not to.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can tell just beforehand, that something's happening.
If they wind up. Yeah.
But, after a couple of goes, you kind of get the picture.
Yeah.
And you?
So the improvisation, I guess, comes in the notes that I'm playing in the bass line, which is different from you because you're given a bass line. So I start with the harmony and I make up the notes based on what I know the harmony is doing. But like you, I listen to what else is happening and I try and support. For me, it would be the soloist, maybe a saxophone, maybe a guitar or a piano, and I support what they're doing by playing loud or playing soft or playing high or low. Choosing notes that are going to work in with what they're doing. And as I said, sometimes I'll choose notes which don't work on purpose because that'll add some tension and that might give the music a bit of a lift or add some energy to it. But like we were just saying, if I have to be kind of complimentary because if I'm not, then I don't get hired again either. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Nick Tipping and I've been talking to Douglas Mews as well. We've been talking about the way jazz and Baroque music have actually quite a lot in common in terms of improvisations and bass lines and harmony. I hope you can make it along to the L'Arpeggiata tour with Chamber Music New Zealand that's coming up in March. And they are really interesting because they mix Baroque music and jazz. So come along and we'll see you there.